So for step 15, attaching the steering linkage, well, there's actually quite a few things we have to do in this step. So we've got to build the steering setup here. So there's a number of step screws and ball connectors. And these BB4s are actually the plastic bushings, but we're going to be replacing those with full ball bearings. So the steering's going to be pretty smooth once it's installed. And you can see we've got some grease that we need to put on the other side of these A10 parts. And then, you know, obviously we have to put on these end bits for the threaded shaft, and they're all for the ball connectors connecting the whole steering linkage. So look at all of the screws and pieces that we need for this. You can see the ball bearings that we're going to be using. And then, of course, there are the parts that we need for this step as well. So I'll set this up and we'll put it together. So let's put the connectors on first. And you can see that we've got two of these little guys that are going to be using these BB14 pieces. And we're going to need to screw those in on either side. So I'll grab the other one and we'll see if we can't get these in. Try and level that out a bit. Make sure that's going in relatively straight, but they're not. It's going to take a little bit to do. Okay, well there's one, but now this one needs to be adjusted so that it's going in fairly level. So let's see how this works. Yes, they're going in now. So we're going to need to turn this and get it so that it is 2 millimeters. They're pretty short. So we need that gap to be at 2 millimeters. Now that's almost correct. So let's see how this looks on here. We need this to be 2 millimeters. I'm gonna have to turn this one more, I think. Try that. Now the diagram in the instructions actually works quite well. And it looks like we're pretty much at the 2 millimeters anyway. If you can see that. If I put that to the edge approximately, maybe I'll do one more turn here. There we go. Looks about right. Yep, that's about the 2 millimeters. So there's one of them done. So we're gonna have to double up and make another one. And again, you just got to make sure that these are going on level. And I try to get them started a bit before I, spin them on. And it's looking okay. So let's, yeah, I think so. Let's keep going here and see what we get here. Yep, they look fine. So we'll keep spinning them on. This is where you need a bit of thumb strength because they're quite tight. One more turn. Looks like that's about right. So we'll measure it. Pretty much at that 2 millimeters. So let's make sure that they're more or less the same, which it looks like they pretty much are. So that's good. So those two are finished. So now we have the bigger one to do. And those ones are going to be using these BB13 connectors or adjusters, however you want to call it. But for me now, it's going to be easier to use my handy dandy shock pliers to be able to hold that while I turn this on. Gives me something nice and firm to grab as I turn it. And that seems to be correct. Okay, so let's do the same thing with the other side. Well, again, I'm going to hold it using this. And let's turn that on. There we go. Now I want to make it fairly even so that both sides have the same amount of threading showing. Now I just want to check to see how that's going to look, and it actually looks like I don't need to go much farther. In fact, I think I'm going to have to back one side off a bit. So if I look at that, I think we're going to back off this side. And see if we can get this correct. So it needs to be at 79 millimeters. Now if I look on a ruler, the 79 millimeters is almost 80. Which you can see is pretty close. If you can see that whole thing, 79 millimeters. I think we're almost there. Now I'll twist it off just a little bit more. But I think we're good to go. So there's the 79 millimeters. Yep, I think so. I think we've got it. So there is our steering arm complete. So those pieces I can kind of put aside. We're done with that for now. So let's take a look at the actual steering setup. So you can see we've got this A2 piece, which you can see based on the diagram. We'll turn this around so that you can see how that's going to look. There's sort of a dip on that side, whereas that's flat, right? That's flat there. That's flat. That's kind of got a bit of a divot sort of imaging there. Let's go with this. We know that these ball connectors need to go on the ends just like that. So I will grab the handy dandy box wrench. And again, I'm just going to check that again. It's got to go in the end ones. So let's make sure we've got this going. It looks like it's relatively level. So we'll screw this all the way in. So there's one of them. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, we're going to use the box wrench. And I'm going to turn that into there, using the box wrench to kind of help level it out. Looks like I've got it correct. So we'll screw it all the way in. And there we go. So that's what that part looks like now. And you can see that we've got to put these pieces on. Now you can see that for the A9, it kind of looks like that. And this one's a little bit more, well, there's more to it than the little guy. So if you see this, we know that we need to get the BB2 into this top corner. So I'm going to start it off here, I think, where it's going to, oh, I see. It's going to go directly into that part right there. Okay, so let's do it this way. Before I put those bearings in, I'm going to screw this onto this spot right here, just because I think it'll be easier to do if we do it this way. So let's just make sure that's going in correctly. Yes. So, whoops, let's knock that off. Try this again. And again, this is because this is a step screw and it's not threaded. Make sure that you get to the end but don't over tighten it. So it should end up looking just like that. Now, I think that's going to go in just a little bit farther. Yeah. That means there's just enough play. But again, don't over tighten. So you can see that there's a bit of play, but not too much. And you can see that if we take a bearing, there's one on the top and one on the bottom. One would pop in there. And if we turn it over, another would pop in there. So that would be one side, and the ball bearings on either side of that. So now let's work on the other side. So you can see that the way this is flat, this is raised. We want it in the raised side, so the ball connector needs to go in the end right there. So we're going to grab that, and we're going to turn this in. Make sure you're trying to get it as level as possible. I pretty much have it, so we're going to turn this on. Get it all the way down to the end. There we go. Don't over tighten. And now you can see in terms of the way that is shaped that we've got our step screw again that's going to go through that arm and go directly into this hole right here. So that's going to sit down here. And let's make sure that in terms of the positioning, in fact, I want to see, just out of curiosity, I'm curious to know how much of that's going to go down. Yeah, it's going to go a fair bit. So again, let's put that in, and I think just because it's probably going to be easier to let it sit on the table initially. Yep. And now I'm going to hold it this way, and we'll screw it all the way in. And again, once you get to the end, you'll know, but don't over tighten it. It's pretty close. And I'll do one last check on this side. Yeah, they're in. So ultimately, that's what it looks like. So we've got the other bearings to put in. We'll snap one in there, turn it over, and put one in there. So ultimately, that is how that looks. Kind of a cool design. So now let's grab the chassis. And you can see that the way this is going, these bits are going to end up holding everything in place. But it seems to be showing that they want you to pop these onto the ball connectors right away. So let's do that. Let's see if I can push this on, or whether I'm going to need to use pliers to do it. No, I'm going to need to use pliers. So let's put that there. Let's see what we can do here. There's one. And do the same thing with the other side. There we go. So there are those arm bits in place. So now, if we take this, you can see that these bits are going to go through those ball bearing bits just like that when we're attaching this. Now, you'll notice it's showing you greasing them up. Well, because I'm using the ball bearings, I'm not going to do that. So we're going to take this. We're going to just make sure that this fits right on that hole there. This is going to fit down below, and then we'll end up getting screwed onto here. So first off, just want to make sure that that is correct. Yes. So we're going to use the non-tapping screw, the long BC1. And we'll start this off. I just want to have something in place. And then we have a tapping screw, the BA6, which is actually attaching to the front. Now, I'm not attaching the whole thing down yet. I just want to make sure that this is actually sitting properly. So let's do the same thing with the other side. We know that it's going to be this piece right here, which is going, you use the large tube section to go through and down, and we use one of these BB1 screws to screw it in place. And these are the non-tapping screws. And then we're going to use a BA6 on the front and screw that all the way in. And again, we'll screw that down. Just get it going first, and then I can do a test. So to my mind, this is pretty smooth here. So we can screw everything in now. So I'll screw this in all the way. So we've got the tapping screw on the front, which is in. This we want to go till the end, but don't over tighten because you could strip it out. Feels pretty good. So I'll turn this around, same idea. I'm going to need to screw this one in all the way. And then the tapping screw at the front. So there we go. So there is our steering assembly in place, and this feels really, really smooth. The bearings help a great deal. Yeah, that feels very smooth. So next thing we need to do is we need to snap on our steering arm, which is going to go here. So we'll take this, I'll grab the pliers. In fact, I'll do it the same way. And take that. And there we go. So there is our steering arm to the servo. Very cool. So that means that step 15 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 16 and work on the front axle.